Welcome to Melachim Bet, perek Chaf Gimel, chapter 23, where we meet the super righteous. You know how we spoke about Menashe, the super villain? Well, his grandson Yoshiyahu is the exact opposite. He's not just righteous, he's active in his righteousness. He's, I would say, even militant in his righteousness, and you'll see how he really revolutionizes and reforms the kingdom of Yehuda. So remember the episode last chapter, King Yoshiyahu sends Shaphan, his Secretary of State. He sends him to the Beit HaMikdash to start renovating, where Shaphan meets the Kohen Gadol Chilkiyahu, and they find an old Sefer Torah. And it says terrible things there. It says that if you don't do what Hashem says, you'll be expelled from the land and be destroyed. And he realizes that that's exactly what they have been doing. And so he assembles all the people of Yehuda. He reads to them the words of the Torah. And now in perek Chav Gimel, he goes into full revolution mode. No, I'm not talking about him just having people doing more mitzvot. No. He goes and King Yoshiyahu systematically destroys every single type of avodah zarah that there is. And from the destruction that he brings, you can see how much avodah zarah there is. So first of all, he has to clean up the Beit HaMikdash. There's avodah zarah in the Beit HaMikdash. Remember, King Menashe put avodah zarah in the Beit HaMikdash. Then he has to go and he destroys all the molech and the tofet, where people would burn their own children. Think about that. They would burn their own children to the avodah zarah. They would use what's called the tofet, where they would use big drums so they didn't hear the cries of the baby that was being burned for avodah zarah. And they and he destroys all of this. So King Yoshiyahu destroys that. He destroys they had these horse race tracks where they would run to serve the sun when the sun would rise in the morning. He destroys that too. He even destroys the certain avodah zarahs that Shlomo's wives, remember that's like from Melachim Aleph, he destroys them too, and destroys all that avodah zarah from Yerushalayim. Then he goes to Beit El, remember where Yerovam built the mizbechot for people so they don't have to go to Jerusalem to serve Hashem. He destroys that, and a very interesting episode happens, because when he destroys things, remember, to not worship Hashem includes also people who worship Hashem just in their backyard. They have a mizbeach, a private mizbeach. And so he makes all those impure. He makes them tameh using, I hate to say this, bones. Remember, bones are impure. He makes them impure using bones. And when he gets to the mizbeach in Beit El, which is where Yerovam built his mizbeach, there's a flashback to the book of Melachim Aleph, where Yerovam split the kingdom. The prophet of Hashem stood and said, this is exactly the spot where your bones will be used and burnt. And that's exactly what happens. King Yoshiyahu takes the bones that are there to make it impure, and the grave of the righteous person remains intact, and the prophecy from the book of Melachim Aleph is fulfilled here many chapters later. He then celebrates Passover for the first time in a long time. Crazy as that sounds, the Jews didn't celebrate Passover when they were elsewhere, when they were not doing what Hashem did. And not most importantly, but he also bans all the Kohanim that serve avodah zarah. Kohen for us is a Kohen, a descendant of Aaron, but there were also Kohanim, priests, who served and worshipped avodah zarah. He bans them, and he says if a Kohen worshipped avodah zarah, he cannot serve in the Beit HaMikdash. He really destroys everything. And then again, the prophecy comes true, where the grave of the king of the prophet who came to Shomron to warn Yerovam in Melachim Aleph remains intact. And again, he makes this extraordinary Passover, which it says, crazy as this sounds, I'm going to read it to you, but he says there was no Passover done like that for a very long time. It says, "Vayetzav HaMelech asu Pesach laHashem lo na'asa ka'Pesach hazeh." There was not such a celebration of Passover. Mimei hashoftim asher shaftu et Yisrael. There was not such a Passover celebration from the days of the Shoftim, the judges, the book of Shoftim, the Chol Yemei Malchei Yisrael Malchei Yehuda, and all the days of the kings of Israel and Yehuda, no such a Passover was made. So he's obviously a very righteous king. He cleans up the city of Jerusalem. He destroys every single bit of Avodah Zarah. He makes sure there's no Kohanim to Avodah Zarah. He makes sure Kohanim to Avodah Zarah cannot serve in the house of Hashem. Nonetheless, the Torah testifies, the prophet testifies, there was never a king like him in Yehudah who returned to Hashem in all of his heart and b'chol levavo, b'chol meodo, like you see in V'ahavta, right? B'chol levavo, b'chol meodo. But nonetheless, the edict from God to destroy Jerusalem is still in place because what the Jews have done in the days of Menashe and others have been just too much. Now we have a very unfortunate situation, which is actually mentioned in the Kinot for Tisha B'Av, and that is Paro Necho, the king of Egypt, the emperor of Egypt, comes to war, and he's going to war with Assyria. So technically speaking, he's not even at war with Jerusalem, but nonetheless, the Torah says, if you do what Hashem says, if you actually listen to every word of Hashem, not only will there be peace, but even a sword that's going, an army that's going from one place to the other is not going to go through your land. And so when Yoshiyahu hears that Paro Necho wants to go through his land, he says, I will not let it, and he goes, he puts his chariots together, he takes his sword, his weapons, and he goes to stop Paro Necho. Very, very bad decision, and this is his one sin. He didn't listen to the prophet Yoshiyahu. Now, why was the blessing of Lo Cherev Lo Ta'avor B'Aretzachem? Why is the promise of Hashem that a war will not go through your country? Why was that not fulfilled? Because even though Yoshiyahu cleaned the land up from Avodah Zarah, there were still what we call Leitzanei Ador, people who worshipped Avodah Zarah secretly. Anyhow, Yoshiyahu goes towards Paro, and in the city or area of Megiddo, then he gets killed by Paro. Interesting fun fact, Megiddo is actually the source for the Christian word, which later became a general pop culture word, the word Armageddon. That comes from Megiddo. And so Yoshiyahu, unfortunately, with all of his righteousness, with all of his good deeds, with everything that he has done, he is killed by Paro Necho in Megiddo, and that is the end of his reign. It's a very sad thing, and we say a kinah for it on Tisha B'Av because it was such a revolution, both in terms of uprooting Avodah Zarah, celebrating Passover, reestablishing the Beit HaMikdash, that the loss of Yoshiyahu was just a devastating blow to the Jewish people, even if the Beit HaMikdash wasn't destroyed, because of all the righteous things that he did. That brings us, I believe, to the end of the perek, where his son, King Yehoyakim, becomes a king. Actually, interesting fact, Eliakim is the son of Yoshiyahu, and Paro says, Eliakim, my friend, I am about to change your name. Your name is not going to be Eliakim, it's going to be Yehoyakim, and you will be my slave. And so Yehoyakim is the next king, and he's the one that's subservient to Paro. I did not mention King Yehoachaz, who is the younger son of King Yoshiyahu, who is king for a bit, because he is a king for just 3 months. Can you imagine being king for 3 months? Well, I wouldn't mind just 3 months, but nonetheless, Yehoyakim is the next king of Israel after Yehoachaz was there for 3 months, and his name is changed from Yehoyakim to, from Eliakim when he's born to Yehoyakim by Paro. And we will see you in the next perek, which I believe is the penultimate perek of the book of Melachim. The book only has 25 chapters. I will see you in perek Chaf Daled. Thank you for listening.